The medico's eyes welled up with tears of joy as he passionately narrated his story. He eagerly shared his plans for future, describing how he intended to transform his disability into a source of efficiency. He raised practical concerns, seeking my guidance and wisdom. I responded to his queries, and we engaged in further discussions. As the scheduled 3 hours came to an end, the meeting concluded. Afterwards, he dropped me off at the location of my next engagement. It was the first time I had seen a car with a hand operated clutch and brake. As I also knew driving, I sat beside him, experiencing a mix of fascination and slight anxiety while observing his special and effortless driving skills. After dropping me off at the predetermined venue, we bid farewell. That dynamic 3 hour meeting will forever remain carved in my memory. As with my earlier experience, I found that there was nothing specific for me to say or do. The truth is that everything necessary could be gleaned from the class itself. Many others are likely to have a similar experience. However, only a few choose to come forward and share them. Philosophy as a means to overcome the sorrow of parting. Engaging in the self study of lessons on Sanatana Dharma, learned from the wise and internalizing them thoroughly. Yajnas, that is, attempts for propagation through discourses, prove to be immensely helpful. It is truly fulfilling to witness the philosophical messages conveyed being absorbed and assimilated by the recipients. Knowing about the audacity and serenity of philosophical awareness brightening their lives is truly inspiring. All the students from that particular class are now actively involved in various walks of life. Some of them still maintain contact, though attempts to arrange a meeting with all together were unsuccessful. However, I had spoken with a student who spent 3 hours in a meeting on a couple of occasions. He pursued higher studies in psychology and became a highly sought after psychiatrist. I also learned that he got married, embraced family life, and engaged in commendable charitable service. Meanwhile, he faced the complications of polio, which resulted in partial paralysis. Surprisingly, he overcame this challenge, and during that time, I spoke with him over the phone. He continued to serve with a smile for some more time. Unfortunately, an unexpected heart failure claimed his life. I received this news from his friends and relatives. Drawing upon the same philosophical lessons that empowered him, let us also transcend our sorrow of parting with him. I hope readers recall my earlier statement and promise regarding the sorrow of parting, which I will explain at the end. This is it, his demise. Jivo Brahmaivanapara. Life principle is nothing but Brahman. Sampujya Sadguru Bodhananda Ji used to refer to this as Brahman's project in the design of manifestation of Brahman, who is absolutely unique. Ishvara, the Lord, Jagat, the world, and the Jivan, the life, become visible. The Jiva principle develops a sense of ownership in existence as well as the roles of doer and enjoyer. This is its fundamental nature. Gradually, the Jiva principle loses its power of discrimination and forms strong attachments to identity, leading to the intertwining of joy and sorrow and the emergence of tendencies or vasanas. Freedom from this complex cycle of birth becomes possible through Tattva Bodham, or that is the philosophical awareness of truth. That is Jivan Mukti, liberation while still alive. This awareness that everything, including the body, is a manifestation of the same Brahman, which is beyond the realm of bondage and liberation. In truth, bondage never truly existed, and liberation is not something to be attained externally. Enables the jiva to embrace its inherent oneness with Brahman from within. It is also worth remembering, as narrated in the Gita, that the journey of the jiva through births and deaths can be likened to changing robes. The student who was blessed by Tattva Bodham, after exhausting his prarabdha or accumulated tendencies by leading this worldly life, merged into the awareness of the oneness of the jiva with Brahman. Let us find solace in this understanding. The third experience. Swamiji, an unexpected death has occurred in my relative's house. A man passed away during a long journey, and his wife is still unaware of the news. We have informed her that he met with an accident. It will take 4 days for his body to be brought back home. Before that happens, she needs to be informed and prepared. None of us have the courage to deliver this news, and they don't have a spiritual background either. If Swamiji could come to their ancestral house, I can talk to them and make the necessary arrangements for your visit. One of the regular students attending the Bhagavad Gita class approached me with this request one day. Stay detached from unbearable pain and observe from a distance. Her husband had met with an accident while on voyage. She was informed that after initial emergency treatment, he would be brought back home for specialized care. The wife, filled with prayers and hope, anxiously waited her husband's return on the third day. The request over phone was whether I can take the responsibility of informing her the heartbreaking fact that her husband would never return. Please arrange for a meeting. I will certainly come, I replied. The house was large and many relatives had gathered. I had already been aware of this and had requested for suitable arrangement, ensuring that only one close relative would be present in the room. Upon my arrival, the house was quite crowded. The relatives led me to the room where she lay, exhausted and in tears. As planned, all but one relative withdrew from the room. Swamiji, please pray. I want my husband to have at least a glimpse of life. I am ready to take care for him for the rest of my life, she pleaded, breaking into tears. Softly, I called her by her name and said, I will offer earnest prayers. Please remain strong. I began by inquiring about the exact details of her husband's condition. Amidst her sobs, she narrated what she knew. It became clear to me that she believed he had suffered serious injuries but would recover with specialized treatment. Her husband was a truly noble soul. During shipwreck, he chose not to escape when he had the opportunity. Instead, he was determined to save others, and in the end, he succumbed to exhaustion. I had already been informed about this during the phone call. When she attempted to sit up, I asked her to remain lying down. My initial objective was to uplift her from the realm of her overwhelming emotions and guide her towards a state of discernment. I recalled a picture that Sambhujipodananda Swamiji had shared with us while studying, and I felt it was important to initiate the conversation by sharing that image. I asked her to take deep breaths for some time. The dance of manifestation and withdrawal. As I noticed her sobs gradually subsiding, I addressed her by her name and began to speak. Please visualize a vast desert spread out before you. Observe how swiftly sand dunes are formed as the wind blows, only to be scattered and reformed elsewhere with the next gust of wind. When Swamiji painted this picture, and whenever I used it to uplift someone from deep despair, it was purely an act of imagination. It was only during my Kailas Yatra in Tibet I witnessed such sand dunes in reality. That sight still remains vividly imprinted in my mind. This is what happens in nature. This perpetual dance. Sand dunes appear and manifest accordingly and then disappear. Just as matter is composed of atoms and the vibration of energy, it is essential to remember that energy itself is inanimate. However, in this world of living beings, there definitely exists something different from energy, the consciousness. The universe itself is a dance of this mundane matter and consciousness, an eternal cycle of appearance and disappearance. She listened intently with hums and sound of her weeping gradually fading away. I continued with the analogy of the desert. Perspectives are shaped by our outlook, I explained, emphasizing how our views leave imprints on the level of mind and intellect. By taking control of our outlook, we can also gain control over the influence of external sites. It was as if I were delivering a class, and I could sense her gradually regaining her composure, which was truly heartening. Whenever I discussed the desert, a particular verse from Atmopadesha Shatakam would come to my mind, intending to explain its meaning. I began chanting the verse. The art of permitting. For dialogues and satsangs to provide solace, they must cultivate a necessary outlook in those who receive them. The approach I adopted when conveying the news of her husband's passing to his wife has been shared in many satsangs. Some couldn't even believe it, while others disagreed. Nevertheless, the significant fact is that my intervention yielded results. Let us turn our attention to the model presented in Vedavyasa's Adhyatma Ramayanam. When Bharatan and others were engulfed in a flood of sorrow due to Maharaja Dasharathan's demise, Guru Vasishtha directly uplifted them with pure philosophical advice. Lord Sri Ram also consoled and reconciled his brother and anguished mother when he had to depart for Vanavasam, life in the forest. Similarly, when Vali was killed in battle, Lord Sri Ram consoled his wife Tara, unveiling the secrets of philosophy. The same philosophy was put to use when Ravana's wife Mandodari lamented embracing her husband's body. The Ramayanam contains numerous such episodes. Arjuna, the great warrior, well equipped for war, suddenly fell into depression on the battlefield. Seeing his close relatives on the opposing side, the prince, consumed by sorrow, turned away from his duty. To that depressed Pandavan, Parthasarathi imparted world class philosophical lessons. When the issue of death was analyzed from a philosophical perspective, Arjuna became fully committed to his duty. Philosophy first, followed by practical applications, was the sequence demonstrated by Lord Madhava, and it must be remembered. The inevitable changes conceived by time in the world must be allowed to occur freely. Bhagavan inspires us to do so. We must expand our individual perceptions to achieve this. Stubbornness only depletes our energy and leads to suffering. In granting permission, there exists a harmony with the cosmic desire. This harmony enables us to make amicable decisions and progress forward. It is always ideal to cultivate a macro outlook well in advance in order to confront any type of problem or crisis. Even in the case of a person experiencing excruciating grief in the absence of such noble perception, an attempt to impart philosophical ideas should not be dismissed as futile. Can we compare ourselves to the instances of Sri Ramji and Sri Krishna offering advice? When Swamis speak philosophy, it may be acceptable to others, but as laymen, will we succeed? The answer is that we need not harbor such doubts. Whatever we are convinced of, we must share it with compassion and sincerity. Ideas will naturally flow from our hearts to their heads, creating a graceful exchange. We will be able to sense the recipient finding solace and tranquility. It is important to avoid any sense of pride, thinking, here I am going to share deep philosophy. I am going to console this individual. A gurgling river unto the parched landscape. Let us now return to the real story of the shattered wife weeping upon hearing the news of her husband's severe accident, citing the verse അധിക വിശാലമരുപ്രദേശമൊന്നായി നദി പെരുകുന്നതുപോലെ വന്നു നാദം ശ്രുതികളിൽ വീണു തുറക്കും അക്ഷിയെന്നും യഥമിയലും യതിവര്യനായിടേണം. From Atmopadesha Shatakam by Sri Narayana Gurudevan. Drawing upon this verse, I began to explain. Please imagine a vast and extremely arid desert. As everyone yearns for even a single drop of water, envision a river flowing in. Let the chilling waters quench all inner thirst. The words of Sadgurus console the parched minds and provide necessary perception to fully appreciate the scenes before us. I was vividly visualizing the sight as I was talking to her. I allowed a moment of silence to settle in. Then I called her by name as she lay there with her eyes closed. She quickly opened her eyes and asked, Swamiji, where are you leading me to? To the truth. Please gather the courage to hear it. Although it may be difficult to bear, the truth remains the same. After a long sigh, she asked, I will not get my husband back, will I? Overwhelmed, she burst into tears and momentarily lost consciousness. I kept calling her by name, and slowly she regained her senses. She opened her eyes. I reassured her, saying, Will you not stay strong? His body will arrive in a few days. You must bid him a warm farewell. Afterwards, you must utilize the memories of him and live for the sake of others. She hummed in agreement, expressing her consent. I am deeply grateful to you, Swamiji. I will make sure not to let myself shatter. Please pray for my husband. I assured her of my prayers and departed.